Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a piece of technology that, seriously, runs our entire digital world, and most of the time, we don't even notice it. From the second you wake up and check your phone to the end of your day, you're interacting with it. So yeah, today, we are diving deep into what that technology actually is, the cloud. But first, let me ask you something. Just think for a second about all your important digital stuff. Your photos, your emails, those work documents you can't lose. Where are they right at this very moment? Are they sitting on your phone, your laptop, or somewhere else? Well, the short answer is they're in the cloud. We hear that phrase all the time, right? But it sounds so abstract, so floaty and vague. So that's what we're going to do today. We are going to demystify that term once and for all. We'll show you exactly what the cloud is, how it really works, and why it's become so incredibly important.
To really wrap our heads around this, let's actually take a quick trip back in time to a world before the cloud, a world of, well, a lot of frustration that the cloud pretty much set us free from.
Do you remember this? Being a road warrior, trying to juggle documents between your computer at work, your one at home, your laptop? It was a mess. You'd email attachments back and forth to yourself, creating this absolute nightmare of conflicting versions. V1, V2, V2_final, V2_final. The cloud completely changed that game. Now there's just one version of the document, the single source of truth, and you can get to it from anywhere on any device. It seems so simple now, but that one change totally revolutionized how we work. And it's not just about work documents, not by a long shot. The cloud is the invisible engine powering so much of our lives. When you're gaming on PlayStation now, you're using the cloud. Hopping on a video call for work? That's the cloud too. Collaborating on a Google Doc? Building your professional network on LinkedIn? You guessed it, it's all powered by the cloud. It is quite literally everywhere. Okay, so we get what it does, but how? How does all this stuff actually work? Let's go behind the curtain and take a look at the core tech that makes the cloud possible. So, it really starts with the device in your hands. Most of us use what are called thick clients, our powerful laptops and smartphones that have their own processors and do all the heavy lifting themselves. But a lot of businesses use something different, called thin clients. You can think of these as simpler, lightweight terminals that let a super powerful server somewhere else do all the hard work. They're more secure, they're cheap to replace, and they use way less electricity. They're a really key part of the whole cloud ecosystem. So where is that powerful server doing all the work? It's inside a data center. And this is a really important point. The cloud isn't some vaporous, magical thing in the sky. It is a very real, very physical place. It could be a server room in your office building, or, more likely, a massive warehouse. I'm talking football field-sized on the other side of the planet, just packed with rows and rows of blinking servers. That is the physical home of your digital life. Okay, but here's where the real magic happens. The thing that makes these data centers so mind-bogglingly powerful and efficient is a concept called virtualization. Honestly, this is the secret sauce of the entire cloud computing recipe. It's actually a pretty cool idea. Here's how it works. You start with one big, powerful physical server. Then, you install this special software that acts like a digital knife, slicing that one server into, say, half a dozen or even more virtual servers. And here's the kicker. Each one of those virtual servers thinks it's its own completely independent machine. This lets companies squeeze every last drop of performance out of their hardware. It's the whole reason the cloud business model even works. So now we have these incredibly efficient data centers humming away. The next big question is, how do companies actually sell all that computing power to other businesses? Well, they package it up in a few different ways. You can think of it like a service menu, or maybe a better way to put it is like a box of digital Legos. And this leads to the big question for any company out there trying to build something new. How do you actually use this incredible infrastructure that someone else owns to build and run your applications? Let's break down the options. So, the most basic building block you can get is something called Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS. Just think of it like leasing the raw materials. The cloud provider gives you the fundamental stuff, the virtual servers, the storage, the networking. This is absolutely perfect for a new startup that doesn't have a ton of cash to go out and buy a bunch of expensive hardware. Okay, moving one level up the stack, we have Platform as a Service, or PaaS. With this one, the provider gives you not just the raw infrastructure, but the entire workshop to build in. They handle the operating systems, the databases, and all the development tools, like the Google Web Toolkit, for example. This means your developers can just focus on what they do best, building your app, without ever having to worry about the hardware underneath.
And finally, at the very top, we have software as a service, or SaaS. This is the finished product, and it's the one most of us are familiar with every single day. We're talking about things like Salesforce or Microsoft Office 365. You don't build a thing. You just pay a subscription and use a complete, ready-to-go application right over the internet. The provider manages literally everything.
So, if you look at it all together, the most important takeaway is how the responsibility shifts. With IaaS, you're managing almost everything yourself. With PaaS, you just handle your app and your data. And with SaaS, the provider takes care of pretty much the whole shebang. It's really just a spectrum, a trade-off between control on one end and convenience on the other.
Now, picking one of these models and a provider to go with it is a massive decision for any business. We're not talking about a small choice here. This is a huge, long-term investment. So let's run through what companies really need to think about. A business can't just go out and pick the cheapest option. They've got to do their homework. You have to ask the tough questions. Is this provider financially stable? You definitely don't want them going bust and taking all your company's data with them. Where are their data centers physically located? Because having your data spread out across different parts of the world is critical for disaster recovery. And of course, you have to dig deep into their security programs and their encryption standards. And that brings us to the fundamental trade-off of the public cloud. This quote really says it all. You get all this amazing power and flexibility, but you give up physical control over your own information. You're handing over the keys in a way. And that introduces a whole new world of risks that you absolutely have to manage. And believe me, those threats are very real. You've got to worry about insider attacks from rogue employees at the data center itself. You've got professional hackers constantly trying to find a way in. And because cloud providers often put data from many different customers on the exact same physical server, there's always a risk of data leakage or loss if that digital wall between them ever fails. Security isn't just a feature. It's the entire foundation of trust that the cloud is built on.
The cloud has already changed our world so much, but it is not standing still, not even close. So to wrap things up, let's take a quick look at where this invisible infrastructure is headed next. One of the biggest challenges right now is just the incredible amount of electricity these data centers burn through. So providers are getting a lot smarter. They're building new facilities in places like Finland and Sweden, where the cold climate provides natural air conditioning, and they can plug into renewable energy sources. The future of the cloud really has to be a greener one. And think about this. Our world is generating more data than ever before in history, and the cloud is really the only thing powerful enough to handle it all. The entire field of big data, sifting through these enormous data sets to discover new insights, it's only possible because the cloud gives us that almost infinite scale needed to capture, manage, and process everything. So here's where we're left. We have this invisible infrastructure that gives us unbelievable power and convenience. But as we rely on it more and more every single day, the big question for all of us is, how do we keep balancing that amazing convenience against the very real challenges of security, of privacy, and of sustainability? That's definitely something worth thinking about. Thanks for watching.